The chaotic touch of harmony too, bonded by fire. By law-abiding pony. Chapter 4, Fire Hornets. Part 1 of 4. Oipla Garduth was a proud man. No, he was not a man, not any more. Man is weak, he thought as he marched down to Laboratory 1. Mayans of various purposes and prestige filled the hall. Garduth stood above them all, not because of his physical height as he could only boast a 5-foot stature, but in intelligence. They are directionless, genetically defective, incompetent, and utterly worthless save for one crucial attribute: they are malleable. The well-lit and hygienic stainless steel halls reeked of chemicals from the labs along this level, but all were beneath Oipla's notice. He was the Herald's top researcher in Northern Africa, and took immense pride in that fact. As he entered the elevator to go to the lower levels, he found himself alone in the mobile room, so he took the opportunity to vocalize his daily mantra. I, Oipla, will see the Herald's great plan come to fruition, and through my acts, I will earn my place at the side of the gods. He bowed his head in reverence, even speaking their name was a holy act. The quarry dust. He prayed for guidance as the slow descent brought him towards his destination. His once-a-day act of humility was over the instant the doors opened, and he resumed his usual haughty demeanor as he walked towards the only place that truly mattered in his world. 30 meters saw him to those very doors, and after a quick entry of a security code and keycard swipe, he found himself in the room where he would assure his ascension to godhood. Before him sat a vast array of equipment, personnel, and prisoners, all dedicated to finding the solution to the human problem. Well, the first two anyway. He thought as he eyed the humans in their cages in various mental and physical states ranging from healthy to sickly and violent to suicidal. They had been taken from all over the world and were clean of the Mayan plague. The cells had all been soundproofed so the scientists would not be bothered by threats, weeping, or begs for mercy. Garduth would have preferred to be able to listen to it all, as it was music to his ears, but alas, he found it did get distracting after a while. Anything that distracted him from achieving godhood was abhorrent, so he accepted the soundproofing as a necessary evil. He did, however, let the prisoners remain visible, not only so the scientists could see what they were molding into perfection, but so the humans could see what fate awaited them. The plexiglass cages lined the northern half of the principal laboratory. The main genetic engineering and sample production equipment sat in the center of the large chamber. On the far western side was the sole other entrance to the lab. The larger steel doors on the west side led to the cargo tunnel where the prisoners and other large equipment was flown in from a remote hangar miles away. On the south side of the laboratory, and in plain view of the captives to the north, were the experimentation tanks. Each one was in use, and not a one was devoid of some new kind of horror. The tanks were filled with water that suspended the sedated occupants. Each one ranged in size from those that could house a man to that which could swallow an elephant with room to spare. It was no longer a new sight for him, but Garduth was still pleased to notice that Mayans were not the only scientists in the room. In a staff of 28 researchers, 11 of which were ponies of various tribes. With an exceedingly rare display of respect for someone other than him or the Herald, he gave a polite nod to each one as he passed. My fellow Mayans obey the will of the Herald, but these ponies can never accept the Corridist's gifts. And yet they are here, helping us achieve our goals willingly and without coercion. They are like us in a way. They knew how inferior they were in their previous lives, and work to rid this world of the persistent vermin so the quarry dust can arrive to a pristine world for colonization. The Herald never spoke of what the quarry dust would do once they arrived on Earth, but Garduth reasoned colonization to be the only logical conclusion. Oipla found a tan-furred unicorn researcher by the name of Edfu Mubarak leaving to grab some dinner. The ponies and Mayans all came from different regions and languages, but thanks to certain books, all of them had a unified language, Equish. Garduth found the language difficult to enunciate properly, but muscled through it for the sake of practicality. The unicorn yawned with exhaustion and was completely at ease, if worn out. There you are, Oipla. You're just in time, Fenuka was about to summon you to witness our latest test results of the Yeta strain. The chief researcher clapped his hands in excitement. Excellent, that strain showed particular promise. His companion nodded, showing some regret. I wish I could see it myself, but I have gone all day without food, and my mind suffers for it. I will make sure the data is recorded fully for your purview later. With scientific curiosity at the forefront of his mind, he ignored any other pleasantries and went straight to the middle row of specimen tanks. The stallion shared in Gerdatha's excitement, but his body demanded sustenance and so he resigned himself to only witness it later through records. Oipla found 3 other Mayans and 2 ponies glancing between the specimen, a naked man in his late 40s who was incredibly overweight, and the data being extracted by various instruments. The breathing mask was the only thing the unfortunate man was wearing. Is it time? One of his fellow Mayans nodded after tearing his eyes away from the screens. Yes, the incubation period is moments from completion. Garduth shoved one of the lesser researchers away from the main computer terminal so he could watch both the data and the specimen directly. The floating human just shy of being lucid as the sedatives were beginning to taper off. For over a minute he simply floated there, occasionally trying to pierce the fading fog in his mind so he could see past the mirrored glass of his tank. The change was slow at first, his fingers started twitching as they grew thicker while the nails morphed into claws. The little finger atrophied and the hand reshaped itself to compensate. The alterations accelerated as his skin developed thick red scales that raced up his arms. His fat boiled away as it was used as fuel for the metamorphosis which was now converting it into muscle mass over the man's arms and torso. His head lost all of its hair as the scales grew up to his chin, but went no further. His teeth sharpened to that of a carnivore and an animalistic rage fell over his eyes. Everything below his chest and most of the top half of his head remained human in appearance. Garduth tapped away at the keyboard as the changes stopped. Metabolism is stabilizing. Excess fat gone, and the body is not driving itself into metabolic collapse to finish alterations. Brain waves, however, are abysmal. Animalistic intelligence at best, and the connection to the link is minimal. Best case is general guidance only, no possibility of complex or even simplistic orders being understood. Instinctual only. He growled in anger. So much work over this new enforcer and we still can't get the intelligence above a worthless animal. All of the Mayans in his vicinity trembled slightly as his anger was not only felt by the force of his words, but his emotion bled over the link. One of the females tried to placate him. But Chief, we've had to focus all of our efforts on stabilizing the metabolism. Without that, newly infected would just die outright. He grabbed her by the collar. Better they die than roam the world unbound by the Herald's will. He threw her against one of the other tanks, sloshing the water and putting a slight crack in the glass. The outburst was nothing new, and the more senior researchers knew to keep their mouths shut and let Oipla vent his frustration. However, before Garduth could fully lay into the unfortunate scientist, she went ridged and spoke with a voice that was not her own. Stay your hand, Garduth. Oipla backed away from her. Every Mayan in the room knew the Herald spoke through her for the benefit of the Mayans' equine allies. Master, forgive our failures. The Herald silenced him with a gesture. Not a simple movement to signal silence, but by actually blocking all brain signals to the man's mouth. I will make my own judgment of your progress. The puppet closed her eyes as her memory was given freely to the mouthpiece of the gods. A few seconds passed before a curious hum emerged from the Mayan. I see. The Yetta strain will be adequate in its current state. The Herald released his hold over Gerdatha's voice, who immediately turned to the others. What are you waiting for? Get the incubation pods seated and ready for transport. Mayans and ponies alike scattered to obey, giving a supplicating Oipla time to face his window to the gods. If I may humbly ask, Master, why would you wish for this project to be cut short? I'm sure in a few months' time we could have their intelligence back to at least human standards. You can keep working to improve it, but I am no longer willing to wait that long for a completed strain. Humanity has detected my shell. Oipla felt horror wash over him. While I believe my shell avoided giving its purpose away, it is only a matter of time before someone realizes its importance and tries to destroy it and me in the process. Garduth was appalled. But you preside over the ocean floor. Surely no warship in existence could possibly touch you there. The herald gave him a critical look, one that was comical in the puppet he wore. You are a scientist, Garduth, not a strategist. So I will give you this advice. Leave such decisions to the quarry dust, for they are wiser than the stars are numerous. Oipla bowed his head. I submit to your wise counsel. As you should. One of the Pegasus researchers respectfully approached from the side. Begging your pardons, my lords, but I thought you would like to know the seeding process will take 2 hours. After that it will take 3 days for the cultures to grow and will then be ready for deployment. Because the person was a pony, and thus outside of the link, the herald had to ask his questions aloud. Do the culture pods meet my specifications? The stallion nodded. Yes, my lord. Each one can be fitted into a missile with minimal effort or technical expertise. They are all attached to a central incubation pod which will keep the samples alive indefinitely. Once detached, the virus samples will survive a maximum of 1 week before decaying. Excellent. I want them shipped out as soon as possible. I have already informed the transport aircraft to be prepared and ready to receive the cargo. Oipla took that moment to interpose himself between the pony and the herald's puppet. It will be done, master. The herald left his puppet's body, leaving her mind in a bewildered state. Garduth only gave her 3 seconds to recover before barking orders. You heard him, help with the seeding process. Yes, chief. She tripped over her own feet, while the pony withdrew before he could be yelled at to. As his minions scampered away, Oipla couldn't help but feel cheated. I was so close to perfecting this, and yet those damned apes spooked the herald into stepping up the timetable. Fine then, he muttered under his breath as he stared daggers at the caged humans on the far side. Let the cities of the world burn, I will still work at perfecting the enforcer. It will be my masterpiece offering to the quarry dust. Asterisk. End of Part 1.